All right, hey everybody, we are live. We're inside, we're practicing social distancing, but we are live doing our photo shoot today. I'm very happy to be doing this. This is actually a first time for me streaming live on my masterclass, doing actual photography like this. It's been a photography masterclass. I think we're in episode 6 or 7, I lose track. But in all these cases, we've just done it from a post-production and getting your Lightroom ready. Hang on, let me refresh this window so I can see your comments. Getting Lightroom ready, getting your catalogs ready. There we go, I see everybody now. And we're actually, to the day now, we're actually get to put that all to use and do a shoot. So I am here with the wonderful Krista. Krista, we've been keeping like a 6-foot distance, and I have the last bottle of Perel left in the city, so we've been like just using it every 10 minutes just to make sure. So with that said, I see a bunch of folks already in the chat. I see Steve, Wolfgang, Tim, Fred, Andreas, Carolyn, Valentis, and Manuel, amongst other people that are already joining. And if you are watching this on YouTube or Twitter, wherever you might be watching this, it's great that you're watching it. Thanks. And if you're watching the replay, thanks. But if you want to participate in the actual live chat, if you want me to see your questions and comments, then head over to behance.net/live. And that way you'll get a chance to make your comments seen. In other words, that's where I'm actually that's the chat I'm paying attention to for the next almost an hour. So with that said, today's topic is how to shoot portraits or shoot headshots for your social media profile. More likely your professional social media profiles, because if it's just for Facebook or Instagram, you might just take a selfie and be done with it. But if you're maybe posting one on LinkedIn, you're posting one on a resume site or a job site, you're posting one, maybe a headshot to get more work, then you probably want something a little bit more elevated than just the standard phone shot, smartphone shot, or tablet shot. So with that said, Chris, I see you over there on YouTube. Good morning. Head over to behance.net/live, where we will continue to monitor the comments there. And also, first time doing this in my actual photography studio. I'm normally in my live streaming green screen studio, which is across the hall over there. But today we're going to be doing it all live with cameras, with lights, with everything. So let's get started with some of the basics, some of the things that people will ultimately want to know. So for example, you might think, okay, is this camera good enough? Yes, this camera is good enough. It's hard to argue these days that smartphone cameras are not good enough, because they are. This shoots 12 megapixels. It will absolutely capture a great shot. This is an iPhone, whether it's an iPhone or Android phone. Both companies, or both sets of companies, have done a tremendous job in getting camera technology in their phones to be great. Apple does shot on iPhone ads all the time, so they're really promoting the fact that you can do this with a phone. So could you capture your great portrait shot with a phone? Yes, but there's one caveat. And that one caveat is something we're going to be spending a good deal of time on today, and that is subject, positioning, and lighting. So your subject, of course, is your subject. That's not going to change. But where your subject is, where you're taking that shot, and the lighting that you're going to use, you're very limited on your phone compared to using a regular camera. We're going to, I'll show you examples of both. So for example, I probably can do this if I, here, let me mirror this so I can show you guys what I'm gonna do. I hadn't planned on doing this with the phone yet, but just for the sake of practicing what I preach, I'm gonna see if I can do this real quick here. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. I don't know if I have the software loaded for this. I was gonna mirror my phone on the screen so you guys can see it. Let me steal a cable to do it. All right, give me a second here. Good morning, James Fellman. And let's see if I can do this without destroying everything. All right, just a second, folks. Plugging the cable in. Maybe. There we go. Got the cable plugged in now. And plugging the phone in. All right, and that's going to have limited limited reach because the cord is not that long, but we'll give it a shot. And let's go ahead and set up the phone here so you guys will be able to see it in a second here. All right, one more thing. Does it see my phone? And of course, that's not going to work. Okay. We will take the shots with the phone anyway, and I'll just show them to you in Lightroom when we get to that point in the class. And it's not going to take away too much that I'm not doing this because that's not what I was really planning to do today anyway. So, all right. Okay, anyway, you have the phone, you have the camera app on your phone. But if you are using Lightroom on your phone, you also have the ability to use the Lightroom Camera. And the Lightroom Camera is a great way to do this because it's going to give you actual professional controls in the camera itself. So let me just do one thing real quick here and delete. And all right, so I'll just quickly show it to you on camera. So there's the actual camera app for Lightroom. So I got to that by just launching Lightroom, and the camera app is in the bottom right-hand corner. So those buttons right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and fire up the camera. The other advantage of using the camera in Lightroom is that it's going to also let me shoot in RAW. So my phone supports shooting in RAW. That's been the case, I believe, all the way back to the iPhone 7. And this will give me the ability to take an image and capture it in RAW and even use the professional settings. So let's just take just a regular shot. Here we go. Krista, I'm going to get a little closer. I'm still trying to keep 6 feet away. But there we go. We'll take one this way. Great. Okay, so those two shots are going to sync up to Lightroom. We'll see those a little bit later. And that will work. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem with that is you got to have good light. And so if you're going to use your phone, it'll work, but position your subject near a window or near some other continuous light. There are all kinds of LED ring lights. There are LED, I've shown these in my blog before at terrylight.com. There are all kinds of lights you can use that are just on all the time, so they don't have to flash, and therefore they would be great for using with your phone. But if you're going to do this on a regular basis and you want to be able to control the light, then that's where we step up and use a different camera. So I'm going to put the phone down. Again, that wasn't part of what we're going to do today anyway, but those shots are there and they will sync up to Lightroom. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and make an album for those, and that way I'll be able to show them to you. So I'll show you what we just did. So I'm going to select those two photos. Going to add them to a new album. And we'll call that new album Krista Phone. All right, I know you're not seeing what I'm doing right now. Trust me, you will. Add. And we'll give those a chance to get up there. Hang on, one of them added. Let me add the other one. All photos. Select all those two photos. Add to Krista Phone. All right. So now, if I were to go to Lightroom, and then I'll share my desktop so you guys can see it. We'll give that a second to sync. I see it syncing. Let me switch over to my desktop so you can see what I'm talking about here. There it is, Krista phone. And there are the two shots we just took. So that's another advantage of shooting those with the Lightroom camera, is that they are there and ready to go. But if we look at them, even just turning the phone, we can see that we got quite a bit of a difference between the two shots. Like that one is more exposed and that one is like a better shot, but the background's washed out. There's sun coming in from the side on the window. You're like in less control of your light in these situations using your phone. So it's not that it can't be done. It's just if you're going to do it, you want to make sure that you can do it. And would a light lamp work? Okay, Bobby, yes, a light lamp would work, provided you got the right bulb in it. So bulbs from your standard lamps around your home are 2700 degrees Kelvin, which means they have a nice yellow, warm tint to them. And that's great for being at home because you want like the warm comfort of your home. But for photographing someone, that's when it's not that great. So if you put a 5600 Kelvin daylight balance bulb in that same lamp, so much better. So the lights, for example, in the ceiling of my studio, those are all using daylight balance bulbs. So even though they're on, they're not taking too much away from the shot. So yes, you can absolutely do that. And Steve, I do have the Reflector app. I do own it. I just don't know if I have it on this machine. I didn't see it in the dock. Let me check it out and see if I have it here. That's what I was looking for, but I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time looking for it. And yeah, I haven't installed it on this new computer yet. But yeah, Reflector is another way to share your iOS mobile device to your Mac via AirPlay. All right, so with that said, now what's next? Let's go in and take a look at using a camera. I have my professional DSLR here. I've got it connected via a cable. This long USB 3 cable is plugged into it. And this cable is connected to my computer using Lightroom Classic. Now, what I just showed you the first two shots in, those were standard, or that was in Lightroom Cloud version. I'm going to switch to Classic because Classic supports something called tethering. So I'll show you the tethering setup. We're going to use a DSLR camera, nice lens on it. We're going to see what we get with all the various steps of lighting along the way. All right, so with that said, let's switch over to the computer so you guys can kind of see it along the way. Here I've got Lightroom Classic already set up, but I haven't set it up for the tethering yet. That's what we're going to do now. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera on. So I just reach down, turn the camera on, and then I'm going to go over here to Classic, and we're going to go ahead and go to the File menu and choose Tether Capture, Start Tether Capture. Now, when I do that, it's going to ask me a few questions. What do you want to call this shoot? In other words, what do you want to call this session you're about to capture? So I did a couple test shots earlier. I called it Krista Test. Now we're going to call it Krista Photography Master Class. Okay, so now that's also going to be the name of the folder that it creates. So that'll be cool too. Next up, it's going to name the photos that way as well, unless you choose a different naming. You can also start the numbering. I want it to start with number 1. You know, first shot, number 1, second shot, number 2, so forth and so on. And then you can also choose what drive that these images are going to come into your computer on from the camera. So as you're shooting live, where will they actually be on your hard drive? For iPhone portraits, do you need to use metering apps? You could, but that's probably not something you really need to invest a lot of time in, because you're going to snap it, you're going to see it right off the bat. You're also not controlling a strobe, so it's not like you're adjusting the lights with your phone to where you need the metering numbers to know what to dial in. I would probably never use a meter with my phone shots. All right, with that said, not that you can't, but I just wouldn't see much use in it. Now, next thing I can have it do is also add those to a collection. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new collection because I don't have one yet. And we're going to create this new collection and call it Krista Adobe Live. All right, that's what that one will be called. Where do I want to put it? In current work. And I can also sync that one with Lightroom in the cloud as well. Now, Lightroom Classic can sync to the cloud, but it only does it with smart previews. Whereas the other Lightroom and the Lightroom on my phone, the cloud-based version, syncs the full resolution, the full raw file that I captured. All right, but these will be great to look at, and let's go ahead and click Create. Now, that created the collection. Last but not least, I can choose my metadata template. So the metadata template is the copyright info that I want to go into the metadata of each shot that I take. So Terry White Photography, Atlanta, Georgia, website, phone number, whatever you'd want in that template can go in each shot. And also if there were any keywords you wanted that were global enough for the whole shoot, you can go ahead and put those in as well. So for example, I could do headshot. I could do Atlanta, so forth and so on. So you put in whatever keywords that are generic enough for the whole shoot. Now, once I click OK, it will switch to that new collection. It's made the connection to the camera, so I can see the camera's settings there. And I can even control some of those settings. So I can control my shutter speed, I can control my aperture, I can control my ISO, and I can also control my white balance right here from the tethering bar. Now, the tethering bar is awesome to be able to do all those things, but it's also going to be in the way. No matter where I move it around on the screen, it's covering something. So if you ever just want to temporarily hide the tethering bar while you're shooting, you can hit Command-T on Mac, Control-T on Windows, and that toggles it on or off. So Command-T, Control-T will turn the tether bar on or off for you. All right, so now that we've done that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a shot with just, again, available lighting. So not going to be great. So what I'm going to do is if I were just shooting with available light, I would probably, rather than try and shoot my way through the settings, I would just switch my mode to aperture priority. Because what that's going to do is that's going to automatically adjust your shutter speed for the available light based on what you have your aperture set on. So I'm going to set my aperture to 5.6, and I'm also going to set my ISO to be auto, because again, in the dark setting here with just available light, the aperture the ISO is going to need to be raised to be able to expose the shot properly, unless I'm going to put it on a tripod and take more than a few seconds or more than a second to take that shot. All right, so let's grab it. Let's take the shot here and let's see how this works. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll leave it on that for now. And let's go ahead and take a quick shot here. There we go. And that comes right in. And if I were to go full screen on that, that also hides the tethering bar. We can see that it is definitely exposing her based on the sunlight coming from that side of the room. So again, using available light. Also, that sunlight is kind of washing out the background. So if I wanted to dial it down a bit, then I would go to manual. That way I'd be in control of everything. So I'm going to switch back to not be on auto ISO. I'll switch my mode back to manual. I'm going to go ahead and dial down my aperture, and I'm going to also dial down my shutter speed. So basically what I'm going to be on now is this. So 1/60th of a second, f2.8, ISO 100, and auto white balance again. So let's try that shot just to see what we get with available light. With manual controls, I'll probably need to make an adjustment or two. Yep, like I said, an adjustment or two. All right, so what that's telling me is, hey, you still don't have enough light to expose this properly. So I don't want to go down any slower on my shutter speed. I'm already at f2.8, which is all this lens will do. So the next thing I can do is just bump up the ISO. So let's bump up the ISO to like 400 instead of 100. All right, once again. And we should see it more exposed now, a little bit more. And this is that trade-off when you're working with available light. You got to keep sacrificing quality to be able to expose the shot properly. So now that's at ISO 800 and we're starting to get there. So the background's looking good. She's starting to come into play, but you know what? I just don't want to play this game. This is about shooting professional headshots. And if I were really going to shoot a professional headshot, I wouldn't be trying to use available light coming in from a window off to the side. I'd either position her more directly in front of that window, or that's not really suitable in this room. So in that case, it's time to introduce my own lights. So I'm going to put the ISO back to 100. That will give me the best quality. I'm going to put the f-stop back up to like 5.6, 6.3. And I'm also going to adjust my shutter speed up to 1/25 of a second. Now let's talk about lights. Somewhere here. Where did it go? It's behind me. Somewhere here I knew I had a speed light. So I have this speed light. Do you set a minimum shutter speed when using auto ISO? Well, when you're using auto ISO, it's irrelevant because the ISO will keep adjusting based on the shutter speed. So in other words, if I wanted the ISO to be lower, then I would go more wide open aperture like f2.8 because then that would lower the amount of ISO that it's trying to adjust automatically. And yeah, the D850 is a great camera. So light. Now, this is a speed light that pretty much any photographer that's out shooting with a regular camera would be able to afford. There are speed lights by the manufacturers, Nikon, Canon, Fuji, so forth and so on, that are several $100s. This one's under 100. This is by Yongnuo. Yongnuo is a brand that they fashion themselves after making low-cost photography accessories. And the reason I got this one is because I wouldn't care as much if something happened to it. If it got dropped, broken, it fell in a lake, if I'm out shooting in harsh conditions and something happened to it, wouldn't be the end of the world. But if something happened to my $500 speed light, I'd be upset. I'd be very upset. But I'd be less upset if something happened to something that only cost 80 bucks. All right, speed lights are great if you use them right. So, right out of the box, putting 4 AA batteries in it, putting it on top of your camera, and pointing it at your subject is probably the worst thing you can do. Let's try it. All right. On the camera now, turning it on. It's on. And I've got the setting for it at 1/4 power. Actually, let's go down to 1/8 power. So I set it at a very low power setting. So that's the worst possible thing to do to your portraits. You're going to see why in just a minute. All right, let's go back to the desktop. And let's take a shot now with this light. So I'm back to all my manual settings. And that beep you heard, was it recycling? And that's what you get when you aim a light, a small light, at someone's face. Yes, they're exposed. Yes, that light is better for seeing the subject, but it's extremely harsh. So what we're seeing is dead on light, her eyes are looking flat, deep shadows behind her. It just looks bad in every way possible. Not the subject, the lighting. All right, so what's the next thing we can do to improve that if this is the hand we're dealt? So the next thing we can do is don't point it directly at the subject. You'll notice at the top of this light, there's this little card buried in it. Most modern day speed lights have this. There's 2 things in there. One, there's this bounce card. That's what this white card is. But in front of that is this little diffuser. That will soften the light some. Not a whole lot, but some. And then this is set to bounce the light back onto the subject. So instead of shooting it directly at the subject, we point it up, and it will not shoot that harsh light directly in. It'll be more soft if it bounces it off this card. Not going to be perfect, but it'll be better. So here we go. And if we look at that shot, that one, of course, not as bright because we're bouncing it. So maybe I tilt it down a little bit more. And try that one. Okay, and just tilting it down made it better. Well, maybe if I tilt it down a little more. Again, not shooting directly at the subject. And it keeps getting better, but then it's also going to keep getting worse. So I'm still seeing those harsh shadows behind her, and we're going to end up back where we were. So, not the best option even if you're going to spend the money on a speed light. What you want to do in this case, I'm going to turn it off and take it off the camera. What you really want to do with one of these speed lights is do what I just did. Turn it off and get it off the camera. No, really what you want to do is you want to, not that shot, we want to go back to this shot. What you want to do is you want to get it off the camera completely. So that means take it off the camera, put it somewhere else that's going to be a more flattering position, and also put it inside of a modifier that will help the light do a better job. So for example, I've got a couple of modifiers back here. The one that's in front, the rapid box that I'm pointing at right now, that's a portable softbox. That softbox is 26 inches. It's in an octa shape. It's already mounted on the light stand. It's already got its bracket on it. Here, I'll pull it over here. As we can see, it's got a nice diffuser in front of it. If I were to take that diffuser off of it, we can see that it is just nothing inside but reflective material. But the main thing inside is this plate, that metal plate there. And you can see it's right in the middle, and it's kind of facing back at the light. The roundness is sticking out, and it's kind of like a bowl. And it's basically bouncing the light all over this box, or this softbox. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this back together. And then we're going to mount the light, the speed light, to this. But there's one problem. This is going to do a much better job for the lighting, but once it's off the camera, the electronics are no longer in contact with the camera, with the hot shoe, to actually be able to take the shot. So what do we do to get that in place? We add a trigger. We need to add a trigger to both the camera and the light wirelessly that will trigger the flash even though it's no longer attached to the camera. So I've got a couple of Pocket Wizards here. Pocket Wizard's a brand of trigger. There are all kinds of triggers out there, different brands. I'm going to put one on the camera itself. All right. Hang on for a sec. Let me pick up the camera. If I can get it. Screw it all the way down for some reason. There we go. My hot shoe is being difficult. And not letting me put this on. There we go. Finally got it on. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn this one on. So this is what it looks like on top of the camera. I'm going to turn it on the side here. It's got batteries in it as well. And the other one, actually, I attached the little sync cable to it. This one will attach to the side of the speed light. So the side of the speed lights mostly have a sync connection to them. We're just going to plug this in. They're all standard sync connections, by the way. We're going to turn on this. It's got a nice little loop thing. We're going to hang that right onto the light stand. And then we will tilt it down. There we go. and put it right inside the softbox and turn it back on. All right, now that's on, and we'll move this so we can point it at our subject. Okay, now notice it's tilted down at a 45-degree angle, close to a 45-degree angle. You want that because that shadow that we were getting on the background, we're going to get a shadow with light no matter what, unless you light everything. So we want that shadow to end up on the floor. We want that shadow to end up not in the shot. So that's why we put the light at an angle like that. Okay, so let's take the shot now. Now that we're using the trigger, and by the way, I can test it. And I just hit the test button on the back of it to fire the speed light so we know it works. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and dial back in our settings and take a shot. And we may need to adjust the power on the speed light, but let's see what we get. All right, that one looks pretty much the same. So let's go ahead and pump up the power on the speed light now. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Now we're getting there. Now we're getting that shot that I would actually want to post to a social media profile. The background looks good. Subject looks good. Nice light on the subject. Nice light in the catch lights in the eyes. We're not getting a harsh light because we softened it with the softbox. We're getting a much better headshot with this. Now, why the background? Why that particular background? You can use any background you want, but you want a background that's not going to be distracting to take away from the subject. In other words, that's just actually that's a Glenn Dewis portrait background. Glenn Dewis, guy in the UK, created this background. Westcott sells it. But that background is actually designed just for what we're doing. Great for taking portraits and great for just simply removing the distraction away from the subject. Now, looking at this, I'm going to have her, now I'm going to position the subject in a couple different ways. Her shoulders are pretty much straight on, and she kind of tilted her head a little, and that's great. But I'm going to have her do the opposite. I'm going to have her turn her shoulders towards the camera, and then keep her head or nose to the camera as well. So let's see what we get now. All right, ready? There we go. We're getting there. Just that easily. Just by taking that light off the camera and positioning it in a better spot for the subject, we're getting a much better headshot. So what's the rule of thumb for lighting? We're doing a great job with a very low-cost setup. Is that all we need? Yeah, for a headshot, that is all you need. But could you use more is the question, and the answer is yes, you could use more. So what could we do? We could start seeing what we don't like. So for example, I'm liking the amount of light that we're getting. What I'm not liking is that we're only getting it in the one spot. We're only getting it right here on the face. What about under here? What about under the neck? What about that area that we want to maybe bounce some light up? So do we have to add a second light? You could, but there's really no reason to because there are much lower cost alternatives. Simply adding a reflector could do it. Now, before we even get into adding the reflector, we're going to do one more thing. You remember when we were showing the tethering setup that I had auto white balance set. Well, auto white balance is great most of the time. But if you are getting some of that yellow light from your ceiling, from the lamp nearby, from the sun from the window that's open, then you probably want to be able to set your white balance with a neutral setting. So how do we do that? If you think of it up front, you can do it with a white balance card. So I happen to have one here. I put it on top of the reflector so I wouldn't forget. And this is what a white balance card looks like. Basically, this is a multi-purpose one. This does more things. But it's basically something with this 18% gray on it. Now, this one has black, gray, and white. It really doesn't need all three. What you're really looking for is the gray. But the reason it's giving you these distinct shades of white and gray is because you have this line to focus your camera on. You got to focus on something, so it's giving you that line to do it. So I'm just going to have her hold this. All we need is one shot of it. So she's just going to hold that. And I'm just going to go ahead and position the focus on it and take one shot. Now, why do we need that? And I'm going to take it back from her. Why do we need that? Because now that we have that neutral shot, we can white balance everything else we take from this point on and everything else we already took under these lighting conditions. Because now all we'd have to do is in Lightroom's Develop module, we go to the Develop module and we grab the white balance eyedropper and we click right on that gray. And look, the colors, the tone of the shot got a little cooler. So it might have been a little too warm based on the lighting in the room, but that made the white balance perfect. And now, also in your tethering, since I white balanced that last shot I took, setting the tethering to same as previous, that's this pop-up right here. Usually it's on none. But setting it to same as previous means it will do everything the last shot did. So in other words, it will look at what you did to the last shot in the Develop module and apply that to every shot you take going forward. So that's why we take it usually up front and we set this to same as previous, so it'll just keep white balancing every shot we take from now on without us having to go back and do it. All right, so now we'll go back to full screen and we took the card. Now, this particular one, I said it was multi-purpose. If you're out and about and all you have is your speed light and you don't have a 26-inch Westcott rapid box, even this little low-cost reflector, or not reflector, but white balance card, is also serving as a diffuser. So your speed light could actually go inside of here, like you put the head of your speed light up here, and it would soften the light using this. Not going to be the best in the world, but certainly better than shooting straight on with your speed light. So that's why I like this particular one, because it also collapses down into something that fits in my suitcase. So I always have one of these with me when I travel. Always have one of those with me in my bag, because that way I can always pull that out if I need it. All right, with that said, let's add a reflector. Now, a reflector could literally be, can you grab that gold reflector right there? All right, this is a reflector. This is it. They come in all different sizes, all the way down to very small to medium size to super big. And they also collapse down to be very small to travel with you. They usually have two sides. There's a gold warming side and there's a silver or white side, and some of them have slip covers that have white and black and other different colors on them. But basically, just having a reflector allows the subject to position it underneath them so that we can bounce some of that light off. So I'm just going to have her hold it. All right, and tilt it. Yep, that's great. All right, so she already knows what to do. Anyway, I'm going to have her hold it, and we're going to go back to the tethering setup. And let's go back to the desktop there. She's already holding it. Let's take a shot. Just adding the reflector. Let's see what we get. So remember where we left off. This is where we were. And now we're going to see if we can improve upon that, just adding the reflector. And I can already see the difference underneath her neck. So again, let me take the reflector away so we can see the before and after. This is no reflector. Look under the neck. See the difference? See how much more light just adding that reflector did underneath your subject's neck, and so it'll light the lines under their eyes that they wouldn't have if you lit them. It'll light underneath the neck. It'll basically take away things that are unfair to your subject that are just being caused by harsh shadows. All right, so with that said, let's have you put it back. And again, I'm going to have you turn your head directly to me. There we go. And let's take another one. Turn your head more to me. Good, perfect. Take a couple. All right. Now, she's tilting, this is more of a positioning thing. She's tilting the reflector down, which is a good thing because light reflects, but the light itself may not be in the best position to take advantage of it. So I'll just move the light back a little bit. Let's try it again. All right, we're getting there. But again, it's all based on the shape of the reflector, the angle of the reflector, so forth and so on. So we're gonna take it up a notch. We're gonna do a better reflector. Let's get rid of this one. These are great. These are great if you're portable. These are great to take with you. They work great, multiple purposes. But what if we just used a better, bigger, badder reflector? Let's do that. So we're gonna pull over a Westcott highlighter. Now this also comes in different materials. There's a silver version of it. I have the white version of it now because white is just softer light. And as you can see, it's nice and big, creates that nice crescent look. You can also bring your light closer to your subject and have it just do a beautiful thing. All right, so let's go back and take a look at what that would look like. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move the light closer to you again. All right, and I can tilt the light down a little more. And let's go ahead and take that shot. And we are really, really getting to that CEO level of professional look. Now, how can we tell that it's even doing anything? Look in the eyes. You can see it. You can see the catch light right in the eyes from the reflector. Now, we took the reflector up a notch. Should we take the lighting up a notch too? Sure, why not? What size highlighter is that one? There's only one size highlighter. Westcott only makes one size. I don't know how big it is, but it's only one size. So if you go to, I think it's fjwestcott.com, you can find it on their site, and they only make one size. So it's like, I want to say it's 4 feet wide if it were stretched out. So it's at least 4 feet. All right, so this has been great for a low-cost solution. A speed light that's under $100, softbox that's, I don't know what these cost. I can't remember what the rapid box costs, but not very expensive. And your triggers probably cost, again, you can get low cost triggers for even under 50 bucks. That's all great. But what if you want something better? And what do I mean by better? Your light is going to look better if it's bigger. Just in general. The bigger the light, closer to the subject, the softer it will be. So they do sell a bigger rapid box. They even sell a rapid box that you could put 2 speed lights in. You could keep going up bigger and better with speed lights. There's no reason that you couldn't do that. And these are great because they're battery operated and you can take them on location. But if you are shooting in a studio, then you can go up a notch and just have a bigger softbox that's available to you in your studio to be able to use whenever you want. So with that said, I'm going to turn some of this off. I'm going to turn off the trigger, turn off the speed light. Okay, and put this aside now. And behind me is a standard studio strobe by Elechrome. So, and I'm not, by the way, I'm just telling you what it is. I don't care what you buy. You don't have to buy an Elechrome. You don't have to buy Westcott. Buy whatever you want. I don't get paid by either of those companies. But with that said, I've been using Elechrome for probably most of my photography careers, like 2008, 2009. And they've just been reliable, they work. Now, of course, since I'm taking that speed light away, that means I'm taking the triggers away. I'm taking the pocket wizards off. And instead, I'm going to put the Elechrome trigger on top of the camera because that's what I need to fire that particular light. All right. I'll turn that one on. And we'll need to turn on the strobe. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that the strobe itself, because it is not battery powered, this particular one is powered by plugging it into the wall, it's got its own, what's called a modeling light on it. So even if I turned off the lights above the head, she would still have a light on her coming from that light. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to turn these lights off. There we go. So now the overhead light is off, and the only light we're seeing is my light from my camera for me, but that modeling light is what's lighting the subject, so you have something to autofocus on. All right, when you go to a studio strobe, you get a few advantages. One, you get to put whatever size modifiers on it you want, whatever shape you want. It's powered by your electricity, so you don't have to worry about it running out of batteries in the middle of the shoot. You don't have to worry about how long it takes to recycle because the batteries are weak. And also, depending on which strobe you go with, usually the more modern strobes, the trigger itself can control the power. So I don't have to keep reaching up on the light and doing things. I can control it right from the camera. So if we look at the camera, this particular trigger for Elechrome has all the settings for controlling multiple lights as well as their power built right onto the strobe. All right, so with that said, just putting that on, going back to the same settings we were on. Again, I don't even know what power this is set to. Okay, and now that I know, I may need to turn it up or down, but I'm not going to touch it yet until I take my first shot. So let's do that. Now that short beep, that was it. It recycled that fast. So we go look at what we got, that's the shot we get. So we just get a much more flattering light, a much bigger light, so it's lighting also the background. So maybe I even might want to turn it down a little bit or feather it, because right now that light's kind of pointing directly at her. So feathering the light would just be simply, instead of it being head on, turning it. So she's not getting that direct feed from the light. So let me do that. Just going to come over here and move the light so that it's not directly on her. Okay. And let's go ahead and take a shot. And because we can recycle so fast, we can get many more shots in much quicker. And just making that feathering difference is great, but what I'm not liking now is I'm not liking the white balance, because we were white balanced off the other light before. Now let's white balance off this one. So let's do one more thing. Yep, we do need to readjust the white balance. Sean already saw that. All right, so a little too warm. So we're just going to take another shot with the white balance card. Because we are using a different light. Now that we got that shot, and you can see it comes in right, and then it adjusts to be too warm because it's based off the other white balance. So let's go back to the develop module. Let's grab a white balance off this one. There we go, that's better. And now, if we take shots, they should adjust to that white balance instead. You should also give your subject a variety of different angles. So like instead of just a wide shot, give them some actual portraits as well, because you never know what size they may need. or I should say what orientation they should need. And there we have it. All right, so just that quickly, adding a bigger light, we actually get a better result with our subject than the smaller light. And it's also the highlighter's kicking in, it's got more light to work with. It just keeps looking better. Yep, everything looks amazing now. Sorry, Steve, if I called the right person. Yeah, it was Sean that said the white balance thing. You were absolutely right. Steve, yep, wet magic, terrific. That makes a huge difference, actually, absolutely. And yes, everything looks amazing now. Okay, so we have like 5 minutes left. What else could we do? Well, we're concentrating on headshots, so there's not a whole lot of positioning I might do. I might have, if that's not her favorite side, usually people already tilt and pose to their favorite side, but I might have her turn and just take a couple just so we have some from the other side. And I might also take an opportunity to switch out the background and maybe light the background. Let's see what we can get done in 5 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna have you just turn the other way. Take a couple of those. There we go, great. Awesome. Thanks, Krista. Beautiful. All right, get a nice close-up here. Okay, now we got those out of the way. Again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. We're going to do a couple things differently. We're going to temporarily replace that background. How we're going to replace it? Well, over here I have a different backdrop. And this backdrop is actually reversible. It's got white on one side, black on the other. And Chris is doing a good job of social distancing. Actually, let me turn it before I go in. Okay, thank you. Okay, and let's just see what we get with just a plain white background, because a lot of you will be using only that. Okay, so that's what we did. We just put the white background behind. All right, here we go. All right, and again, just the white background, not a huge difference, but it brings the subject out more, because also you would do it based on what they're wearing. So she's wearing a black jacket, so I probably wouldn't use the black side because we don't want the black jacket, disappearing inside of the black background, so we use the white side of it. And I prefer the other background just from a more professional look, but sometimes you're dealing with the card you were dealt, which in this case may be that all you have is a white background. All right, so let's see. So Ashi is saying, you look great. She doesn't know your name. Her name's Krista. And she laughed. That was a thank you laugh. All right. And we are down to the last couple minutes. So if you got any more questions, we'll be right up next. So professional looking, Krista, you're hired. That's why, Krista, we're going to keep shooting. We got other outfits to shoot, other things to shoot. But hopefully you got something out of today. And when you're ready to step up to the bigger guns, you know what they will produce as well, and whether or not they're worth it. Because if you're happy with what you're getting from the Rapid Box, then that may be all you need. All right, so with that said, cheers everyone. Thanks for watching. And hi Sam, hi Dana. We will catch you on the next one. Sam says looking great too. Or looking good too. All right, bye everybody. Have a good one.